Good.
Ok. ¿Cómo te llamas?
Max Alan Avila.
¿Y cuántos años tienes? 3.
3.
Ok. ¿Quieres jugar conmigo? Ok. Vamos a jugar un juego con tus Monster Jams.
Ok.
Lo que vamos a hacer, se vas a poner así. Y vas a cargar tu Monster Jam aquí. Y vas a caminar hacia el basket que está allá. Y vas a poner tu Monster Jam en el basket, ¿ok? ¿Entendiste? ¿Sí?
So for this activity,
Oh.
we were not only targeting trunk and shoulder stability and strength, we were also looking at or working on his motor planning, body awareness, coordination, the modulation of his movements, and well, he was trying really hard. I originally had a different plan of using a different object, but he really wanted to play with his monster truck, so I wanted to include those in the activity. In this next clip, I decided to see if he could coordinate his movements to do a lateral crab walk. And so if you can take a look at him attempting, he has difficulty motor planning and placing his limbs in the correct position, or even mimic and copy my own positioning. So he's still working on his body awareness, and he had some difficulty, so I decided to grade it down. Maybe the lateral walk was too difficult, so I wanted to see if he can just move forward. I gave him the choice of moving backwards or forwards, and he decided to go backwards. So I let him try it and see if he could figure it out. He had a difficult time, so then he resorted to the original position.
Sí, yo te lo pongo. Okay. Levanta sus pompis. Así. ¿Quieres entrar? Pero tienes que poner tus rodillas en el piso. Así. Así. Como un perrito.
I did.
You did it! High five. Okay.
This clip is just a goofy clip that we had while we were doing the
Jump.
session. Max insisted that I try it, and so, wanted to give him a break and also wanted to have a little more fun with him, so I decided to do it and kind of let him take the lead a little bit
Oh, así.
and kind of share the role of leadership, but at the same time keeping it focused on the activity.
Oh, thank you.
In this clip, we were finishing up with this activity. We did it a couple times. He really enjoyed it. But he wanted to continue playing, so to try and kind of change it up a little bit and continue to kind of target some trunk control, some motor planning, and some, I guess, mid-range control and pacing of his movements, I decided to put him into tall kneeling and have him walk towards the basket while we were cleaning up the activity.
Okay, Lexi, quiero que pongas tus Monster Jams ahí en la escalera, ¿ok? En una fila.
Okay, una fila.
Sí, en una fila. Para el próximo juego, ellos nos van a ver. Okay.
In order to transition to the following activity, I had him place his monster trucks in a line on the stairs to kind of keep those aside and out of the way, but also still kind of include them. So I told him they would be our audience for the next activity, and he was really receptive. Also, with the cleanup and organization into the next activity, he's also still working on motor planning, body awareness, trunk stability, shoulder stability, and that crawling, moving from quadruped into kneeling or side sit position. Eso es lo que vamos a hacer. Maxi, siéntate como yo. As you can see, Max started to get really excited and into our therapy session and playing that, you know, he got a little distracted and had a few wiggles and got really silly, which is, for me, was okay. But I could tell that he needed a little bit more stimulation, so I decided to do some star jumps to try to get him a little bit more regulated. I would also like to mention that I did grade down the star jump activity quickly. He had a difficult time coordinating reciprocal upper extremity and lower extremity movements, so I just had him focus on the lower extremity because that seemed to be his strong suit. He still has some difficulty motor planning and coordinating his upper extremities in space. Vamos a juntar los ojitos. Así. Maxi. ¿Listo? Okay. In my video, it was Easter, so I wanted, he seemed very intrigued by his Easter eggs, so I also wanted to incorporate those, and I originally had planned for creating paper wads to work on some fine motor stuff, but I changed it and adapted and used and incorporated his plastic Easter eggs. So I had him sit down in a pretzel sit, and had the eggs spread out different halves around opposite sides of him to target crossing midline while also focusing on trunk stability and core stability, which he did pretty successfully. There was some challenge to maintain his legs in the pretzel position, but with some cues he was able to sustain the position for the duration of the activity. Muy bien. ¿Hay otros verdes? ¿Hay otros verdes? ¿Hay otros verdes bonitos? No creo que tiene pares, solo lo vamos a quitar. A ver, pon junto el otro verde bonito. Muy bien, gracias. So as I mentioned before, this activity targets several things. I just want to highlight some of the fine motor skills that we're working on. So he's working on reaching, crossing midline, bringing bilateral upper extremities to midline. He is also working on some visual perception, visual scanning. The eggs are purposefully placed around him with some halves on the same side, some halves on opposite sides, so he has to visually scan and select the coordinated colors and the coordinating pieces together. He had some difficulty matching the more pointy side of the egg to the shorter round side to make the halves whole, but with min-verbal cues for problem solving, he was able to problem solve with supervision, I would say. So in this clip, I am explaining to Max that although there might be two different colored halves, they could still make a whole. He had a little difficult time understanding that, so I just wanted to take the time to explain it to him so he could understand it. Pero este es un poco más chiquito, ¿ves? Entonces un chiquito va con un grande, así. Párate, ponte aquí. Now we are transitioning into the following activity. So the activity we just did was kind of a prerequisite setup for the following activity that we were just about to start. So in this activity, we are working on hand-eye coordination, body and space awareness, timing, sequencing, problem solving, trunk stability, weight shifting, in different planes, reaching, just trying to get him more aware of his body and space and how to coordinate his movements. So here I am placing the plastic eggs in different planes to facilitate some crossing of midline and using bilateral upper extremities. And you'll see further in the clip, I will start placing it above his head, below, so he has to reach down and to kind of target that mid-range control for reaching. Originally, I don't know if you caught this, but I had a smaller purple basket as a target and had to reevaluate because he wasn't being as successful as I would like him to be. I think as an OT, we kind of have to gauge what would be the just right challenge in order to make him feel successful and continue to motivate him to continue with the activity. And so I decided to grade down and provide a bigger target. So I placed a bigger basket a little bit closer than the other one, and he was a little bit more successful with that. I think anything closer would have been too easy, anything further would have been too difficult. So I think we could hit that sweet spot with this activity and the placement of the basket.
Ok, también podemos hacerlo así. Párate. Mira, así. Así. Ok, ¿quieres tratar? Tienes que separar tus piernitas. Así. Un poquito más. Perfect.
So here I placed the eggs behind him and had him stoop down and kind of reach in between his legs for the plastic eggs to facilitate a more drastic weight shift. Still working on gross motor strength, trunk stability, while providing him some vestibular stimulation as well. Although not the target, I think it's definitely beneficial for him. And he seemed to really enjoy it. I think he wanted something a little bit more stimulating, and so I think that was a good shift in the position and the activity for him.
Okay, ponte. Ponte aquí.
So Max really enjoyed the activity. He had a lot of fun. So we decided to do it multiple times. I think we did a total of about 4 times. And yeah, I think this activity it was very beneficial for him, especially since one of his goals is to prepare for kindergarten. And I think, in order to do well with handwriting and school activities, it's really important to make sure you develop the proximal stability. So then handwriting, the distal mobility is a lot easier. So for the last round of this activity, I went ahead and modified it to have Max in a tall kneeling position. I considered this a grade up from the standing position because it requires much more hip strength and hip stability, core strength, core stability in order to sustain that kind of unnatural quote-unquote position, especially with the crossing of midline and those dynamic weight shifts facilitated by the placement of the eggs on opposite side or in front of him. So to end the therapy session, I told Max that we could play, he calls them carreras, but in English it translates to car races. I like to end therapy on a good note, just so the kids in the future relate good times, happy times, fun times with therapy. I hope you guys like my video.